For those of you who don't know, the kid Crumbley, clearly, out of his gourd, mentally unwell, writing crying for help in a way that was obvious. All of it neglected, not noticed by parents, not noticed by school. Kills 4 of his classmates with a gun that the parents got for him, knowing that he was going through some stuff. They thought it might be therapeutic. I don't know. They're going after the mother criminally for involuntary manslaughter for her negligence in procuring a firearm for her kid, not keeping it stored, locked up safely, such that her kid, who was clearly going through some mental, I'm not saying this to undermine what he did. The kid's obviously not well. Whether or not it's criminal intent, he's fucking crazy. I mean, period. Drawing pictures of these thoughts won't stop. Asking his mother if the house is haunted. They're going after the mother. And the evidence, the most damning evidence that we've seen thus far is that, text messages from beforehand show that the kid was having problems, asking his mother if the house was haunted. The mother seemed to be more interested in horseback riding lessons than parenting. There's a lot of parent shaming in this. But the bottom line is the day of the shooting, the kid is in school, gets called into the counselor's office, the principal's office, with a drawing that had a gun, bullets, people, a person laying in blood. It says these thoughts won't stop. Was seen looking at a video of a shooting event, maybe out of a movie. Was looking up bullets online, gets called into the counselor's office or the principal's office. The mother gets called in. They say, do you want to take him home? And they say, no, we got to get back to work. School sends him back to class. Nobody checks his backpack. Nobody does anything. And then he does it. The issue being here that the mother clearly was onto something, thought something might potentially happen, knew that she had gotten him the gun, earlier in proximity to the events, didn't tell the school. Had the school known, they would have done something different. And that's it. She had her trial. They had closing arguments. I did not follow the whole thing, but I caught up enough today, and the closing arguments are just nauseating. Like the emotional above the legal stuff. I understand it's a tactic that you have to do, but it's displeasing, or it's very off-putting, I should say. But the bottom line, so they're going after the mother's going to get convicted. That's my prediction is she will get convicted. But Robert, hypothetically, the mother knows her kid's mentally unwell, gets him a gun, doesn't lock it up, doesn't tell the school once they're called into the office, seems to have done some guilty stuff afterwards, like deleting text messages, only being interested in how her life is going to be over because of this. And they go after her for involuntary manslaughter. I mean, explain the law above and beyond the emotion.
Yeah, so to convict someone of involuntary manslaughter, and I know of no case like this ever being brought. And I don't like the precedent that's being sought out here. So it's you caused the death through gross negligence, which means you knew of the danger, that ordinary care could have prevented the danger, and that you knew the danger was going to be apparent, likely serious injury. And I don't know how you can be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that she thought he was going to shoot up the school, because that's what you're supposed to find in order to convict her. Now, I agree with you that the jury is not likely to make that delineation like they should. It's why these prosecutions shouldn't happen, in my view, because this is an attempt to prosecute, to shift blame from the school to the parents. The school would have a lot more potential culpability. Why aren't the teachers being indicted? Why isn't the principal being indicted? Why isn't the counselor being indicted? Because all of them determined it was better for him to go back into class than for him to go home. She was supposed to override them? I mean, it's rather ludicrous. So her position was she saw him as sarcastic, that he was going through some issues, but she didn't think it was severe, that that he was always joking about whether the house was haunted. So you get a sense of a parent that's disconnected from the kid, who's perceiving the kid in an incorrect way. But I didn't get the vibe that it was a parent who wanted the kid to go shoot up a school, or thought that could even happen, and thought it, most importantly, the legal standard is apparently likely to happen. So unless they conclude beyond a reasonable doubt that she thought it was likely he was going to shoot up the school, she should be acquitted, which means this prosecution should have never been brought. I thought they were going to have something far more damning, because there were stories early on about, him saying he was going to do it to her, and there were these rumors. They didn't prove any of that. Deleting text messages doesn't matter. They can get those right from the phone service provider.
Well,
I deal
and
with
also
this in civil cases.
it's after the fact. First of all, I'll just read a few chats because apparently this is what happens when people who spent all week watching it don't like the summary. Janeway 1 says Viva lacks facts. We got Magoose who's pulling the shame on you, Viva. That was the worst summary of the trial and evidence. It was a summary. And then let's see here. We got, let me see here. Horseback riding, right? I bet she was, okay, that's not right. Okay.
Well, she was also having an affair. The kid's mental disturbance tells me they're not good parents. But that's very different from causing mass death. And I didn't like this. There have been other cases where they've brought general parental neglect claims. You could maybe do that here. But the other concern I have is they're trying to use this to punish people for allowing gun access to their kids. That's the subtext of this case too. The subtext is any responsible parent would never allow their kid to ever have a gun, no matter what, or otherwise you're really probably complicit in wanting mass murder. That's the other subtext here, and it's a gun control message. And then last but not least, it's shifting blame. They want people like Sandy Hook. They didn't want anybody looking at the school officials and the politicians. That they're the principal people usually responsible on this. Here they had specific awareness of his specific risk, and they didn't send him home and they didn't search his bag. I'm sorry, that's just basic violations. In the name of protecting schools, we have these invasive searches they do all the time of kids. And then when they actually need to do it, they don't exercise it. They just screwed up. You have a lazy school system, screwed up, and they're looking to blame everybody, the gun, the parents, rather than themselves for their complicity and culpability.
The issue listening to the counselor testify, the issue I had is like, okay, fine. Hypothetically, they find the mother guilty. What of the counselor and the principal or whoever they met with and said, oh, we're gonna send him back to class now. Kid was watching videos on his phone, drawing pictures. These thoughts won't stop. And we send him back to class, and they try to fault the mother for saying, I have to go back to work. All right.
To be frank, the school is in a much better position, those trained personnel, than the mother is. The school has been trained for 20 years, 30 years, how to identify risk, how to address the risk, how to deal with the risk. Your average parent doesn't have that training. I mean, it's clear that these parents were not great parents, or the kid wouldn't have had the issues he had, quite frankly. But the idea that the parents were deliberately culpable or complicit in it, I thought we were going to hear evidence of abuse. I thought we were going to hear evidence of something that, you made these people real morally culpable. Instead, it was just the parent has to be the front line of defense. The parent has to be proactive. The parent can't ever let their kids do anything bad or it's their fault. And let's morally shame the parent. They shame her because she likes horses. Shame her because she didn't pay as much attention as she should have. Shame her because she was having an affair. And let's blame shift and scapegoat rather than deal with the real issue, which is also the utter inadequacy of our mental health care facilities in America.
Well, and the blaming her for the after the fact deleting text messages and responding to a tragedy, a horror that I don't know how I don't know what a normal response is to that. And so a lot of the evidence, as far as I saw, was after the fact accusations of hiding guilt. They knew they had done something wrong, and that's why she reacted that way. All that she was concerned about was whether or not she's going to lose her job. The question I had is this, and Joe Neerman raised the question. It's a legit question. The kid was tried and convicted, or the kid was convicted as an adult. How do they go after?
Guilty.
He pled guilty. How do they go after the parents then, as though they should be responsible for the acts of a child when he pleaded or pled as an adult?
Not only that, there's an additional question that even though he has appeal issue about life sentence, it wasn't clear to me how he had Fifth Amendment rights. He's already pled guilty, and the court did not allow him to testify because of Fifth Amendment rights. And it's like, what Fifth Amendment rights? He's already pled guilty. There's nothing for him to be worried about incriminating himself because he's already done so. I found that a little peculiar. And it was interesting to me that it was the defense that wanted him to testify. And that tells me you dig into this case, you had a disturbed kid with parents who didn't pick things up, but not parents deliberately causing his disturbance, nor really aware of his disturbance.
And so
Their
the people,
problem was they were disconnected. Their problem wasn't that they were seeing all these warning signs and just saying screw it,
well, but
like the media originally pitched.
it's also just like predictable parental denial. Nobody ever looks at their kids and says, my kid's got a problem. They look at, oh, he's just a kid, yada, yada. And people should also appreciate this is not a civil liability case for the acts of a minor child. This is criminal charges
This is
for
saying that they're responsible for the murder, that they knew that was likely to occur and didn't take ordinary steps to preclude it. And I just can't, that's just not present in the facts I saw develop beyond reason.
What you think she gets convicted?
It's all depends on the jury, and I don't know how the jury selection went. So I think that it would be a disturbing sign if she's convicted. In my view, it's a disturbing prosecution. It would be an even more disturbing conviction because of the patterns it's setting, and it's ultimately going to be used as an anti-gun case down the road.
Wow. That
you're going to find judges changing custody of kids based on whether one parent allowed them to have access to guns or not. That's where this is coming. They'll cite this case as their example as to why it's so dangerous and so reckless, and how dare you allow your 16-year-old, 17-year-old to have a scary, scary gun. That's where this is heading, and that's what they're intending to do. They're going to re-Sandy Hook guns all over again.
I'm predicting this is neither a want nor any intent here. I predict she's going to get convicted. And then the husband also stands trial in March. I mean, she can get convicted before the husband even stands trial, and as if that's going to be a fair trial. Robert, what was I? Oh no, I was also going to say the incompetence of the school. Set aside whatever you want to blame on whom ever. The incompetence of the school, that they were the ones who had the firsthand knowledge, by all evidence that I've seen, of the events on the day of, and that they take him and they don't say, take your kid, go to a hospital, like check him in somewhere. Go see a doctor right now. No, go back to class. And it was an option. Even by the evidence that I saw, it was an option for the parents. It wasn't an order. Take him home and figure it out, because we're not letting him go back to class. There absolute apathy, left, right, and center.
Well, and especially when they're given such extraordinary power to search. They have the power to detain him. They have the power to put him under a 48-hour, depending on the state, hold at a mental institution. They use this power all the time. They misuse it all the time. And in the case where they actually should use it, they don't. And they don't want to be held no accountability for it, no responsibility for it. That's the real underlying dynamic. And they definitely don't want mental health failure to be. They don't want school failure or mental health failure to be the highlighted stories. It's parental failure and how guns are scary. That's the narrative, and they're pursuing bogus prosecutions, in my view, in order to perpetuate that false narrative.